Blessed good morning. Blessed good morning to the California family. And of course, I want to begin by saying a happy Mother's Day, right? A blessed and happy Mother's Day to all the mothers of the California family. And of course, by extension, to all the mothers who may be viewing this video, right? Today is the day when we honor, appreciate, and celebrate the great work that mothers do for us, have done for us, and continue to do for us, right? And we must say we are really appreciative of all the work that women do. Really are appreciative of that. And many times, one of the areas where we fall short as men and as children is to give enough thanks and recognition to the work that women do for us, the work that mothers do for us. And that's why it's great to have a day like today where we could ensure that we don't fall to that, right? That we don't fall to failing to greatly appreciate the woman among us. So again, I want to say that to all of the mothers, a blessed Mother's Day to you. And I hope that your day today would be well, great, that those around you, your family and your loved ones, would give you the recognition, right, and the appreciation that you deserve on this great and lovely day. So, the direction we want to go today for our message is, given that today is Mother's Day, now of course the message today isn't really specifically about a mother from the Bible, though this woman of course goes on to be a mother. But the focus of the passage we're going to be looking at today is really the example of a wise woman. The example of a wise woman. And what we want to do today is focus not only on mothers, but women on the whole, right? So, women on the whole. And we want to see from this woman in the scriptures, based on the great example that she has set forth, some things which, as well, I'm not a woman, right? But as women of faith, as Christian women, a great example that Christian women should look to follow or aim to emulate, right? And one of the things that the Bible teaches, even though we know that Jesus Christ really is our ultimate and perfect example, he is the one that we are supposed to be striving to be like in all aspects, and he is the perfect example. The reality is the Bible teaches that we should also walk in the footsteps of others, or of other persons, even though they are not the Lord. But in those areas where their lives demonstrate things which are godly, which are wise, which are character traits which all believers should follow. When we see persons like that, right, we should learn from their examples and want to walk in them. That is actually something that Paul taught in the New Testament, right, that we should look to the example of other godly people and aim to walk in their footsteps. So that being said, we're going to be looking into this situation here, this example, and the woman that we're going to be looking at is Abigail, right? Abigail, from the passage of 1 Samuel chapter 25. So we're going to see this account here, read it through, and just quickly pull some of the principles that we can learn. Now, this message today is not really focusing much on any exposition on the text or any deep explanation of anything, to be honest. It's really going to be a very simple, right, straightforward message. And the real focus really is just pulling out the little principles, and I've pulled out 5 examples, right, from the life of Abigail and from what she did. And it's just to pull from those examples, see what we can learn from it, and basically aim to apply them in our lives as women. But also, of course, even though this is targeted really towards women. Whether you're a woman, man, or child, as a Christian, you can learn from this example and emulate it in your life as well. So, to begin, we're just going to read through. We want to read through the account, right? And after we have read through the account, we're going to pull out our 5 principles, see what we could learn from this woman, right? And see what applications we could make in our lives as well. So let's go. So the text is from 1 Samuel chapter 25, right? 1 Samuel 25, it's the entire chapter. And let's see what took place here. And of course, please excuse any right, background noises, something I have to constantly deal with, right? Temporarily. So let's see what we can learn here. 1 Samuel 25. Now Samuel died, and all Israel assembled and mourned for him, and they buried him in his house at Ramah. Then David rose and went down to the wilderness of Paran. Now, just to remember, at this point in this situation here, the context is David is constantly on the run from Saul, who is presently king, right? Always attempting to kill him. Not going too much into the background of that. Let's more focus on what is going on in this chapter here. And there was a man in Maon, different ways you could pronounce that, whose business was in Carmel. The man was very rich. He had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. He was sharing his sheep in Carmel. Now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail. The woman was discerning and beautiful. Discerning there means she was very wise, smart, intelligent woman, right? And beautiful. But the man was harsh and badly behaved. He was a Calebite. David heard in the wilderness that Nabal was sharing his sheep. So David sent 10 young men, and David said to the young men, "Go up to Carmel and go to Nabal," or Nabal, however you want to say that, "and greet him in my name. And thus you shall greet him. Peace be to you, and peace be to your house, and peace be to all that you have. I hear that you have sharers. Now your shepherds have been with us, and we did them no harm, and they missed nothing all the time they were in Carmel. Ask your young men, and they will tell you. Therefore let my young men find favor in your eyes, for we come on a feast day. Please give whatever you have at hand to your servants and to your son David." So just quickly, what's going on here is that David had been basically with his men, and they were protecting Nabal and his property. And all he is asking, a very simple, kind, and straightforward gesture. He's saying, based on all of the protection that I have afforded to you, I'm just asking you, in kindness, for you to do me this favor and provide me with some provisions, right? When David's young men came, they said all this to Nabal in the name of David, and then they waited. And Nabal answered David's servants, "Who is David? Who is the son of Jesse?" There are many servants these days who are breaking away from their masters. Obviously, this guy, true to form in terms of what the text said about him, he's a really, really harsh, kind of foolish man as well. We're going to see that. "Shall I take my bread and my water and my meat that I have killed for my sharers and give it to men who come from I do not know where?" I like this phrase, which should sort of translate to when in Trini we say, "May I know where you come from?" Or "Who is you?" That's basically what he's saying there. He's saying, "Who is you? I don't know who you are." Very disrespectful, of course. So David's young men turned away and came back and told him all this. And David said to his men, "Every man strap on his sword." Obviously retaliating in anger, they're going to kill him. And every man of them strapped on his sword, and David also strapped on his sword. And about 400 men went up after David, while 200 remained with the baggage, or remained with their stuff to protect it. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, "Behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to greet our master, and he railed at them. Yet the men were very good to us, and we suffered no harm." The same protection that the text had talked about that David's men did for them. And we did not miss anything when we were in the fields, as long as we went with them. Now, something to point out here, in those times, when you're in the open fields like that, it's very, very dangerous. And as a matter of fact, David, were he a dread or evil man, he could have easily used his men to attack Nabal, right? But out of his good character, he didn't do that. So what is being pointed out here by the servant is, hey, I mean, this guy really, really helped us out. They could have been wicked to us, but they did the opposite, right? It says they were a wall to us both by night and by day, meaning they protected us, all the while we were with them keeping the sheep. Now therefore know this and consider what you should do, for harm is determined against our master and against all his house, and he is such a worthless man that one cannot speak to him. It's really sad, this guy. I mean, in other words, the servant saying, it didn't even make sense to go and try to talk to him to change his mind or anything like that. He's so foolish and dread that don't even bother with trying to convince him of anything. Then Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves and 2 skins of wine and 5 sheep already prepared and 5 seahs of parched grain. That is a measurement quantity there. And 100 clusters of raisins and 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on donkeys. In other words, she is going to carry gifts for him. And she said to her young men, go on before me, behold, I come after you. But she did not tell her husband Nabal. And as she rode on the donkey and came down on the cover of the mountain, and behold, David and his men came down towards her, and she met them. So Abigail is basically hastily, notice that she made haste. In other words, she wants to very quickly solve this dilemma here before problem comes, right? Now David had said this prior, surely in vain have I guarded all that this fellow has in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that belonged to him, and he has returned me evil for good. God do so to the enemies of David, and more also, if by morning I leave so much as one male of all who belong to him. Obviously, David retaliating here in anger, which really he should not be doing, right? But basically, he's very angry, and he's out for blood. When he says this, basically saying, yeah, what, are you going to kill all of his men? Very, very dread movement there, but of course in retaliation to what Nabal had done. When Abigail saw David, she hurried and got down from the donkey, and fell before David on her face, and bowed to the ground. Very respectful, of course. She fell at his feet and said, on me alone, my lord, be the guilt. Please let your servant speak in your ears, and hear the words of your servant. Let not my lord regard this worthless fellow, Nabal, for as his name is, so is he. It's really interesting. And Nabal means foolish, right? Imagine your parents naming you something like that, right? So he came true to form to what his name meant. Nabal is his name, and his name means foolish, and folly is with him. But I, your servant, did not see the young men of my lord, whom you sent. Now then, my lord, as the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, because the Lord has restrained you from blood guilt, and from saving with your own hand, now then, let your enemies and those who seek to do evil to my lord be as Nabal. So she's basically trying to hold back David from acting rashly. And when she says blood guilt, in other words, David going out and killing somebody, right? And obviously being guilty, because at the end of the day, that will be murder, even though, of course, it's in retaliation for some wrong the person did to you. But at the end of the day, David would have gotten himself in having blood on his hands, right? Unnecessarily at that. And now let this present that your servant has brought to my lord be given to the young men who follow my lord. Please forgive the trespass of your servant, for the Lord will certainly make my lord a sure house, referring to David here, because my lord is fighting the battles of the Lord, and evil shall not be found in you so long as you live. And she's also trying to defend or protect David's character here. In other words, from him doing something which would have a great stain or tarnish on his character. And she obviously believes the word, and we're going to get into that in a little while, that was spoken about David by the Lord, that he's going to be king and all of that. If men rise up to pursue you and to seek your life, the life of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of the living, in the care of the Lord your God. In other words, she recognizes, of course, that God has greatly been on David's side, protecting him. And the lives of your enemies he shall sling out as from the hollow of a sling. And when the Lord has done to my Lord according to all the good that he has spoken concerning you, and has appointed you prince over Israel, talking about the prophetic declarations made about David, my Lord shall have no cause of grief or pangs of conscience for having shed blood without cause, or for my Lord working salvation himself. And when the Lord has dealt well with my Lord, then remember your servant. So she's obviously saying, in essence, you are going to be king. All these great things that the Lord has spoken about you are going to come to pass. And you don't want that when that time comes, you have to look back on foolish actions that you made and obviously feel very convicted and obviously bring guilt on yourself as well. And David said to Abigail, Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who sent you this day to meet me. Blessed be your discretion, or wisdom, and blessed be you who have kept me this day from blood guilt and from working salvation with my own hand. So she kept him back from doing that rash act. For as surely as the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, who has restrained me from hurting you, unless you had hurried and come to meet me, truly by morning there had not been left to Nabal so much as one male. In other words, if you didn't stop me there, I was out to kill this man and all of the men with him. Then David received from her hand what she had brought him, right, the gifts. And he said to her, Go up in peace to your house. See, I have obeyed your voice, and I have granted your petition. And Abigail came to Nabal, and behold, he was holding a feast in his house, like the feast of a king. So imagine this guy, after what he did there, after that wickedness he did to David, he enjoying himself, he living it up. And Nabal's heart was merry within him, for he was very drunk. So she told him nothing at all until the morning light. In the morning, when the wine had gone out of Nabal, his wife told him these things, and his heart died within him, and he became as a stone. And this figure of speech here obviously means something went on with him medically. With some commentators say it's a stroke, or he got a heart attack, or something like that. But basically, right, just the news of what had happened, and obviously finding out that he could have died by the hand of David, just the shock of that had this great effect on him, right? And about 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal, and he died, right? When David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, Blessed be the Lord, who has avenged the insult I received at the hand of Nabal, and has kept back his servant from wrongdoing. The Lord has returned the evil of Nabal on his own head. Then David sent and spoke to Abigail to take her as his wife. When the servants of David came to Abigail at Carmel, they said to her, David has sent us to you to take you to him as his wife. And she rose and bowed with her face to the ground and said, Behold, your handmaid is a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my Lord. Obviously, a very humble woman there. And Abigail hurried and rose and mounted a donkey, and her 5 young women, attended her. She followed the messengers of David and became his wife. Really interesting story here. And again, all we want to do is simply pull out some things from Abigail's actions, from her character, and see what we can learn, right? So we want to see examples that our Christian woman, could emulate from this interesting scenario here, right? So the first character trait that we want to learn and see from Abigail is that she possessed inward and outward beauty. Notice the text says the woman was discerning, which means she was wise or smart, intelligent, right? And beautiful. So she was discerning, a wise woman, and a beautiful woman. And this is very important to see and learn here as Christian women, and obviously mothers as well. And that is that we want to have beauty that is not merely external. One of the things that happens in our society today, right, particularly in our times, there's this great pressure on women to be externally attractive. Obviously, every time, whether you're looking on the TV or anything like that, what is being, demonstrated or showcased is very attractive women. A lot of stuff about makeup now, a lot of stuff about, the external clothing that women wear. Very great highlight on the external beauty of a woman. And just to be clear here, there's nothing wrong with highlighting external beauty. As a matter of fact, the text here chooses to highlight that. In other words, it didn't ignore the fact that she was a beautiful woman. It made sure to mention that. And of course, beauty has its place. So it's not that there's anything wrong with, as a woman, you want to look attractive, or you want to, the many different things that women do, right? In other words, having external beauty. As a matter of fact, there's an entire book in the Bible, right, which is Songs of Solomon. And that book is entirely dedicated, a lot of it actually, to highlighting love and external beauty of a woman. So that is great. It's great to have that. And it's great to recognize all our beautiful mothers, right? Particularly from California, right? So all our beautiful mothers and our beautiful women at California, we salute that, right? And we appreciate that. But the point is, we don't want to just have external beauty alone. And that's what First Peter teaches. Notice it says, don't let your adorning be external. In other words, don't let what is beautiful about you only be the external things. And he mentioned some things like the braiding of hair, putting on of gold jewelry, clothing you wear, which of course is a lot of the things that, as I said, modern society focuses on a lot, highlights a lot, right? But the teaching of the passage here, which Peter is saying, let your adorning be the hidden person of the heart, with the imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is in God's sight very precious. Now, what we're seeing here is that Abigail is emulating what we're seeing in this text here. In other words, her adorning or her beauty is not only external. She has external beauty, which is great, which is good, and we obviously something to value and appreciate. But she is also discerning, and discerning there obviously means wise, intelligent, smart. So in other words, in essence, this means she was a wise woman. She was a smart woman. She knew in different scenarios how to act, how to think. And this discerning here is not really, when it says wise and intelligent, the focus here is not really on having like degree and masters. That is not what is being spoken of here. As a matter of fact, there's no reason to believe in this text that Abigail was this woman that went to these great, learning institutions or anything like that. The point is that she just possessed wisdom. She was a wise woman, and wisdom is accessible to all our women. And James talks about that. The book of James says, if anyone lacks wisdom, you can just ask of God. And the wisdom being spoken of there, of course, is not the wisdom of having a degree or a master's or a PhD, but the wisdom of basically having the ability to think through certain situations, make wise or smart or informed decisions. That's really what it's about, the proper use of knowledge, which is really what wisdom is, right? Having knowledge and being able to use it effectively in a situation. But the point we want to learn here from Abigail, and as Christian women on this Mother's Day, is that we want to have both qualities. And we want our women to have both qualities. And Christian women should possess both qualities, right? And the solution is there. So in other words, if you're a Christian woman and you're saying, but I don't really have much wisdom, just ask of God, right? As James spoke about. The book of James says that very clearly. Just ask of God. Ask God for wisdom and he will give it to you. But the point is, don't focus too much on the external only, just as Peter taught it. So you want to be a Christian woman where You are not, what is great about you is not just the external part, right? Not just the external beauty, but the character trait that you have on the inside. And of course, I would take this time to celebrate that with many of the women at our church at California Wesleyan, right? A lot of women that we have, and that is great, a great thing to celebrate, who have this wisdom, right? Who have discernment, who are able to make wise and informed decisions when the situation arises. And this is what we want to aim towards. And the question that obviously should be asked here is this you? Is this describing you as a Christian woman? Do you have both the wisdom and the external beauty? Right? And one of the things to highlight again, and again, we know that today is a day that we celebrate mothers and women, but we want to highlight and focus on that as mothers, we want to be discerning women. We want to be wise women, right? We want to be mothers who, when, just like with Abigail, right, when a situation arises in our family, we are able to use wisdom, right? Use wisdom, use discernment, use guidance from God in how to get our family out of difficult situations, in how to prevent problems from happening with our family, right? Use wisdom when something arises with your husband and your children, knowing how to act properly, right? Knowing what to do. This is the quality that we want to be aiming towards, right? So while as as today's Mother's Day, and we may want to have ourselves looking nice. Not sure how many women may do that today, right? You all may just stay home and relax. You mightn't be doing much beautification. And just to throw in, of course, we are in the time of the quarantine here. So many times some women are even studying that, right? Just however it is, nobody into pour on much makeup and all those things. But the point is, right, even if we're not focusing much on the external beauty today, we want to focus on our internal beauty, right? So our internal beauty and our wisdom. And that is what we want, because notice something here. Peter says the imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, and also wisdom obviously applies there. And that imperishable part is very important, because at the end of the day, all external beauty will fade in time, and we all know that. We have to be real and accept that. That is a part of life, right? That is a part of life. And as women, we need to learn that and understand that at the end of the day, all of the great and external beauty, however much we have that we possess externally, in time, as we age, as time moves along, that beauty is going to fade away. And it applies for men too, so it's not anything against women there at all. But all external beauty fades, right, guys? All external beauty. And it's just like a flower, right? It's just like a flower, which has its time when it's in its blossom and it looks great and all of that. But as we know, flowers eventually wither away and die. In other words, the external beauty of it passes away. However, if we are like Abigail, even though in time to come external beauty will fade away, we are still going to have our wisdom or discerning character. Or like Peter is saying, we will still have these qualities here, gentle and quiet spirit. And notice the text says, which is in God's sight very precious. So in other words, this, at the end of the day, even though these two things are great, to be discerning and beautiful, what is most important is the inward quality. The inward quality, right? So she possessed inward and outward beauty, and this is something as Christian women we want to emulate and show forth in our lives as well. Second is she was a seeker of peace. She was a seeker of peace. So notice in the text it says, Abigail made haste, and she took 200 loaves and 2 skins of wine, and basically gathered all these things to carry them for David. And her intention was, and we learn from the text, her intention was she wanted to bring peace in this situation where there was this obvious anger and rift which she had found out about. And notice it says she made haste. In other words, she hurried to do this. She wasn't lackadaisical or slow to it at all. But the principle that we're learning from here, and the principle we want to emulate as Christian women and mothers, is that we want to be seekers of peace. We want to be women where when there's a scenario, whether it is in our family or in the church, and we know, right, and we are aware of great rifts taking place, right, hostility taking place, we want to be the one that is able to step in there and mend relationships like that. And this is good. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of this example, but I can think an example immediately comes to my mind in our assembly, right, at California, where a situation arose. And I can remember specifically where some woman rose up and they basically went to amend. There was a little rift between two persons, right? A very harsh, sharp disagreement took place. And these godly women and mothers as well, they rose up and sought to bring peace to that scenario, bring peace in that situation, bring peace to those members in the assembly. And I was really, really impressed by that. Really, really impressed by that. And when I looked at that, I said, that is a really amazing quality to have, to be able to stand up. And just a note, it wasn't anything that the women themselves had done. In other words, it was a rift that took place with members, not themselves, other people in the assembly. But they chose to stand up in that scenario and seek to bring peace between those members. And that is an amazing quality. And that is very similar again to what Abigail is doing here. This has nothing to do with her, right? In other words, she wasn't the one that offended David in any way. It was her husband that did that. But even though that was the case, she chose to rise up and say, I want to mend and bring peace in this situation here. And notice she is following in line with what the Psalm says. And the Psalm says, turn away from evil and do good, but also seek peace and pursue it. And this part of pursue it here is very important. And please again, excuse those noises. I really hope that you all could bear and tolerate with that, right? Yes, so it says seek peace and pursue it. And notice that is what Abigail did. She chased after peace. She pursued it, right? She ran it down. She of herself decided, I am going to go out. I am going to be the one to go forward and try to mend and repair or correct this rift or this broken relationship that has taken place here. And where we want to make some applications for that is that as Christian mothers, right, as Christian mothers, in the home, we want to be like that. We want to be the peacemakers of the home. And many times in a home, women are the one that rise up and help to bring peace in the scenario, right? We don't want to be women who are the opposite, right? Who bring in rift or quarrelings and complainings or making the situation worse. We want to be Christian women and Christian mothers where in our home, when a problem arises, whether it's between yourself and your husband, or if you're a single mother and between yourself and your children, right, or something happens in the family, when that rift takes place, or when that, whatever is the problem that arises, we want to be the woman that would rise up and say, I want to mend this situation. I want to bring peace to the situation, right? I don't want to add fuel to the fire, but I want to be the one who will stand up and say, hey, let's not quarrel anymore. Let's not prolong this, whatever it is, rift in the relationship. Let's not prolong arguing. Let's not prolong quarreling with each other. Let's not prolong the not talking to each other and all of that. I want to seek peace. I want to chase after peace, and I want to mend relationships, right? Not push relationships further apart. And many times, and as we know with human nature, and the weakness of the human nature is that many times when a situation arises in the home, right, where there is rift or some kind of disagreement, many times we like to hold our corner, Not so. I know about that. Many times I fall to that where, you're angry, you're upset, and you don't want to seek no peace at all, right? You just upset, whether it is with your wife or whether it is with siblings or children. In other words, this person get you vexed and they're not talking to you, so you're leaving it at that. And many times, sometimes it's a very big temptation for mothers and Christian women and wives to do that, where whether it is your husband or your child does something to you that is, and they may be very dead wrong, right? And sometimes the temptation is, I don't want to talk to this person for a while. I don't want to have, any conversation with you. And I just want to leave, basically go in my corner, you stay in your corner, and leave things at that. But we want to be different, right? We want to be different Christian women and different Christian mothers. And we want to be the ones where, even though, whether it may be our husband or our children, chooses to be the ignorant one, and many times in my scenario, I'm that ignorant one. Many times I'm that ignorant one. But even if the husband chooses to be the ignorant one and says, I don't want to have any more conversation with you, or I'm not going to, talk to you for a while. As godly Christian women, we want to be seekers of peace, where we initiate, right, whether it be with our husband or our children, and say, hey, let's end this rift between ourselves. Let's make peace. Let's discontinue this argument, right? Let's come together in love. That's what we want to be aiming towards. And Jesus Christ pronounced a blessing on people that do that. Remember when he said that? He said, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. So persons who are about making peace, right? Not about arguing and quarreling and all of that. Persons who are about making peace, Jesus says, they shall be called the children of God. So that's how, as children of God, that's how we are supposed to operate. And that's how a godly mother is supposed to operate, right? And a godly woman is supposed to function like that, where she is aiming to make peace, right, in her family and in her home. And what you want as a Christian woman is that you want your home to be a place of peace. You want your home to be a sanctuary of peace. You don't want your home to be a place of hostility and anger and rift and strife and always arguing and things like that. You want to be a person in your home where you are the one, whether or not everyone else is not aiming towards peace, you are the one that is able to bring calm and peace to that family. And I know that there are many Christian mothers like that, but all of us should want to be like that, right? All of us as Christian mothers, we want to be the one in our home where we cause our home to be a sanctuary for peace, right? And of course, we know that it's difficult. We're not saying this is an easy thing to do. And even for Abigail, this may not have been an easy thing, because at the end of the day, this wasn't her fault. She didn't do anything there. And many times that's the temptation, not so? Many times the temptation is, that is not my fault. I didn't do anything there. I wasn't the one who started this problem. I wasn't the one who started this argument. I wasn't the one who caused all of this drama. But look at Abigail. She wasn't the one who started anything, but she is the one that is aiming to seek peace. A very, very powerful and great example, right? One that we want to follow as Christian women and mothers. Let's see what else we can learn from her character. The third thing we could see from her is she protected her husband despite his behavior. And this is a really, really amazing quality trait here, right? And we know, of course, not all our mothers among us may be married right now, right? But for those that do, is this something that you are willing to do? To stand up and protect your husband, even when he do foolishness, even when he dead wrong, to stand up and protect him, to stand up and guard him from attack. Really amazing. But all women, right? All women could emulate this. Even if you don't have a husband, that's beside the point. The point is that we could be women that stand up, right, to the defense of persons, even though that person is, as we just call them, ignorant, right? Foolish, stubborn, hard-headed. That is where godly character comes in. Where despite how this person may be behaving, they may be a foolish person, just like Nabal, his very name is foolish, right? But look at what Abigail says, which is very interesting. She says, "On me alone, my Lord, be the guilt." Could you imagine that? She is saying, David, here what? Charge that wrong to my account. Charge that wrong to me. Right? Don't bother with Nabal. Don't bother with him. Look what she says, right? She says, "Let not my Lord regard this worthless fellow Nabal, for as his name is, so is he." So in other words, she is very much aware that this guy, Nabal, this is a ridiculous man, is a foolish man. But notice that does not stop her from standing in his defense. That does not stop her from saying, "Hey, at the end of the day, this is my husband, and I want to guard and protect his life. Even though what he did, he very much deserves." In other words, he bring that problem on his own head. She doesn't say, "Hey, you look for that, so you solve your problem by yourself." No, she stands in the gap. And this is a great example of what we call standing in the gap. In other words, standing up between when there's hostility between two persons. We are going in the middle and saying, "Hey, listen, even though this person is dead wrong, I want to stand to their defense." And when I say stand to his defense, it don't mean defending his wrong. She wasn't defending his wrong. What she was saying is, even though he is dead wrong, I want you to forgive him. I want you to be patient with him. And that's what I mean by standing in his defense. You know what's interesting about this example here that Abigail did? This is exactly what Jesus Christ did for us, This is a Christ-like example. What did Jesus Christ do for us? We, as enemies of God the Father, sinful, wicked, disobeyed all of the commands of God the Father, did our own thing, right? Weren't caring anything at all about what the Lord has commanded to do, living our own lives in the world. What did Jesus do? He stood in the gap. He stood between and he said this same thing. He said to the Father, "On me be the guilt." And that's what Jesus did. He took our guilt in his place. He took our punishment in his place. He was willing to stand up and say, "Even though these people are wicked and bad, Father, even though these people very much deserve to be punished and judged by you, I am standing in the gap and I'm saying, forgive them. Let the punishment come on me. Be patient with them. Have mercy on them, despite their wicked and evil behavior." So what we can learn from that as godly women is this. Despite the behavior, whether it be our husband who is dead wrong and do some foolishness, or our children who are dead wrong and doing some ridiculous nonsense, we know and I'm very much aware that we have Christian mothers like that in our midst, that even if their children do something dead wrong, not defend them in the sense of defend their wrong, but they are willing to stand up and say, "Listen, forgive my son. Forgive my daughter for the wrong that they have done. Have mercy on them. I'm sorry for what they have done." Right? And I'm sure for Christian mothers who have children who are a little older, right, would be aware of that, where sometimes your child do some real foolishness, whether it's in school or with somebody else, and you have to stand up and say, "Hey, I'm sorry for what my son or daughter did. Forgive them. Be patient with them. Have mercy on them. They are wrong, yes, but I'm sorry." I know many times my mother had to do that when it comes to school. Anytime she had to go to school when it was those parents' days, she had to many times stand up and say that, because I was always doing some foolishness in class. Right? And she had to be like, "Forgive my son, have mercy on him, be patient with him," and things like that. But the point of this here is, despite the person's behavior, she stood up for him, even though her husband was a really off guy. And a great principle again that we want to pull out from this is that if you are a Christian mother, right? Or even if you're not a mother, as I said, I'm going beyond just the mother aspect. If you're a Christian woman and you're in a scenario where you're married to someone, a man, and sometimes he's really falling short, right? Really falling short in his behavior. You can still stand to his defense, you know. And I'm saying not defend his bad behavior, not excuse his bad behavior or anything like that, but stand in love and say, listen, even though my husband got himself into trouble here, got himself into problems, I want to help him out. I want to help him in this scenario. I don't want to see bad fall upon him. I want to help him. I want to bring him out of, even though he threw himself in that pit, I want to help to lift him out of that. And now that takes great character. That takes great character, because many times the temptation is you get yourself in that, you get yourself out of it. Isn't that what we are often tempted to say as women, you know, to our husbands or our children? You get yourself in your problem, you get yourself out of that for yourself. I'm not getting myself involved in that. But no, that's not what Abigail did at all. And notice what she said, and I'm making an application with this text here. It says, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. You know how she would have been overcome by evil? If she had said, you know what, Nabal, all the wickedness and evil that you've done, I'm leaving you to get the consequences of it. That is being overcome by evil. That is bringing back, and the scripture talks about this, railing for railing, or returning evil with evil. So in other words, you do bad, I'm doing your back bad. You do bad, I'm not going to help you. Right? You do bad, I'm going to leave you to suffer the consequences of it. And I'm not getting myself involved. That is being overcome by evil. But she wasn't overcome by evil. She overcame evil with good. So in other words, she did good and stood for good for her husband. Even though, very clearly from the text, this is an evil and a worthless guy. Great character being displayed there. Let's see what else we can learn from Abigail. She was a woman of faith. She was a woman of faith. How did she demonstrate that? Look what she said. She says, and when the Lord has done to my Lord, referring to David, according to all the good that he has spoken concerning you, and has appointed you prince over Israel, my Lord shall have no cause of grief, or pangs of conscience, for having shed blood without cause, or for my Lord working salvation himself. And when the Lord has dealt well with my Lord, then remember your servant. Look at two main things she says here. She says, when the Lord has done according to all the good he has spoken concerning you, and when the Lord has dealt well with you. What is she talking about there? Just to throw in a little background here, though we wasn't really focusing much on this, but it's important to mention here, is that David, so just to throw in a little bit in the scenario, David, he's on the run from Saul. Saul is currently king, and he's always on the run because Saul is trying to kill him and all of that. But remember, Samuel had anointed David, and Samuel had spoken some words from the Lord concerning David that he was going to be king. Remember that when Samuel anointed David to be king and made declarations over his life that he's going to be king in the future and all of that. Notice, she believes that word. That's a woman of faith right there. Notice what she is saying right now. Just to understand this, David is not king right now. David is not in any great position right now. But she has already believed that it is going to happen to him. And she's actually saying, when you become king, right? So notice what she says here. When he has appointed you prince over Israel, she's talking about when he becomes king there. That's just a phrase, right? So what she's saying is, when you have taken up that position of being over Israel, you don't want to look back on this day and be ashamed. But what it shows is that she believes the word of the Lord. She believes what God has spoken about David is going to come to pass. And she is acting in accordance with her faith. Notice she's not questioning or wondering if David is going to become king. She is saying, I know you're going to become king. And given that I know you're going to become king, I want to guard you and protect you from doing foolishness right now, which when you do become king, you're going to have to regret. And notice she says, when you also become king, remember your servant. So notice in this woman's character is that her actions, apart from the love aspect of it, which we saw before, and her being a peacemaker and all of that, her actions are also being guided by her faith in what God had spoken about David. She believes what the Lord has spoken about David, and she is acting in accordance with that. That is really, really amazing. Now, what that means also is that as godly women and as godly mothers, we need to be women like that, where God has spoken certain things in His Word. We want to act in faith. We want to walk in faith. We want to walk based on what the Word of the Lord says. Even though the present circumstances may be rough or off or whatever it is, what we walk in with is based on what the Word of the Lord says, what God's Word says, not what things look like. And that's where Paul also mentioned this, where he says we walk by faith and not by sight. And that's a principle by which as believers we are supposed to live, where we are living our lives based on our faith, based on what we believe God has said in His Word, and we are acting in accordance with that belief. And that's what Abigail did here. And you know what's a practical example of acting in faith? When we could trust that, hey, God's Word says, forgive, then I'm going to act in accordance with what God's Word says. I am just going to trust that God knows best. You know why it's not acting in faith? Where God's Word says forgive, and you know what we say? We say, no, Lord. I need to show the person, right? I need to show them how they was wrong. I need to show them how they were bad. Do you know that that is not walking in faith? That is not walking in faith, because you are not trusting. God's Word says, listen, trust me, and I'm telling you, forgive the person, right? I'm telling you, look to make peace. I'm telling you, seek to overlook the wrongs that others have done. And when we walk in line with that, that is walking in faith. That is trusting what God says to do over what we think is best to be done. That is also acting in faith. All of that is part of acting in faith. Usually we apply walking in faith with believing for things, believing for healing and all of that. And all that is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But it also applies to those things which God has spoken and told us to do. We need to trust and believe God. So if God says, for example, as a godly woman and as a godly husband, if He says, listen, forgive your husband or submit to him or whatever it is, many times we act in our own wisdom and we say, no, Lord, if I were to do that, He's going to take advantage of me. If I were to forgive him, he wouldn't learn in terms of what he did was wrong. And that is not walking in faith, you know. That is not trusting God's Word. And it applies also for our children as well, right? Walk in faith when it comes to your children. Believe the Word of God when it comes to your children. Apply the Word of God when it comes to your children. Train them up in the way they should go and all of that. All of those things. And as I said, most people think about faith in terms of just believing God to heal and things like that. But faith, it just means trusting what God says. Trusting what God's Word says. All of God's Word. We trust what God's Word says, even though we may think we have a better way. Or we may think, I don't really think the way God said to do this, I don't think that will work out in this scenario. So we need to be women of faith. So that is what Abigail did, right? She walked in faith. She believed the word that God had spoken about David, and she's acting in accordance with that belief. And notice she isn't even doubting. And look what she says here. She says, when the Lord has dealt well with my servant, when, not if, not maybe, but when God has done what He has said about you, remember me. Showing that she certainly firmly believes that God is going to do what he has spoken about David. And the question that we should put to Christian mothers here is, do you believe all that God has spoken in his word? And do you believe it's going to come to pass? And do you trust what God says in his word over your own wisdom, over your own insight? Right? So we want to be women who walk by faith. And finally, and we're going to end with this because our time is upon us, she possessed great humility and a heart of service. So after all the events took place, and of course Nabal has passed away, and David is going to take her to be his wife, all right, look what she says. She arose and bowed her face to the ground and said, Behold, your handmaid is a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my Lord. You could imagine that? Now she knows, remember, she knows that David is going to be king. She knows that this man is going to be the greatest over Israel and all of that. Look at her focus. Look at her focus. This quality here is one which, and I saved it for last, because it's one I want to greatly highlight. Notice she isn't saying in her mind, nice, I'm going to be the wife of the man who will be king. I'm going to be on top. I'm going to be the one of the greatest women in Israel because I'm going to be married to the greatest, the king, the greatest man in Israel. No, hear what she says. When she finds out that David is going to take her to be his wife, she says, I am here to be a servant. A servant. Her focus is not on getting anything from David. Her focus isn't to gain anything from the man. Her focus, the first thing she says is, I am here to be a humble servant. And notice, listen to the extent, to wash the feet of the servants of my Lord. So she's saying, here what? Not only am I coming to serve you, David, but I'm also here to serve your servants, or serve your men, or serve those who belong to you. Could you imagine that, Christian woman? Could you imagine that, godly mothers? Is that you this morning? Where in your relationship, that's for those who are in one, or in your relationship or in your marriage, is that your focus? Where you're saying, my aim is I want to serve this man. I want to serve, and for those who are single mothers, I want to serve my family. I want to serve my children. It's not about what I can get from them, but what I can do for them. What a great, great principle to learn from, and what great humility there. Humble to the point that she's willing to wash feet. How many of you godly mothers would be willing to do that today? This is a complete, of course, cultural difference here. But could you think about that? Right? In our culture, it may not be washing feet, so we don't really have that culture here now. But think of it in some other scenario, right? Where your husband brings friends over. Are you willing to serve them? Wash dishes for them or clean up when they finish. All of that is part of service. So let's excuse this gentleman who is selling his goods here. I really chose a bad time to record this. I was supposed to record this last night, but I was so tired. But yes, getting back to our message here. So she is willing to be a servant, to be of service to David and his friends. And think about that, godly women and godly mothers. Do you have that quality in you? Do you have that quality in you? Where your aim when it comes to your family is to be a servant to your family. To serve, right? To help. And I know that is a quality trait that many, many Christian women walk in. And all should. And I've seen this example very practically with my mother and also with women in our assembly. And I want to highlight that, and I want to commend our women, our Christian women at California, because many times we see that. We see that all of the time, where when there are tasks to be done in the church, in the assembly, we see the woman rising up and being willing to serve, to help, to clean, to cook, and all of the other things that are necessary. We see women rising up and being willing to be women of service. And that is the type of quality we want to have as godly mothers and godly women. To be women where it's not about what could be done for us. And I want to stand up here and say, of course, that we don't want to abuse this. And many times, so for the husbands, for the children out there, many times we abuse this because our women, and particularly in California, are women who serve a lot. And sometimes we abuse that, right? Where they're doing so much service and we're not taking any time to think and say, hey, let me look to help. Let me look to stand and help and be of a support to these godly women, right? And don't let that discourage you, a godly woman. Sometimes as husbands and as children, we fail a lot. We fail to help, we fail to support you as we should. And a lot of times the burden of serving is very heavily on your shoulders, right? Which is not good. Again, not good on our part. But on your part, as godly woman, that shouldn't discourage you from being a woman of service, right? Shouldn't discourage you and say, hey, I do so much for you all, I ain't doing anything for you all again. No, we should be willing to serve, and our mindset should be one of doing humble work, even willing to wash feet. And the application, as I said again, in our society would be willing to do things like clean up after somebody, right? Wash somebody's dishes, right? It's a good one, which I'm going to just throw here and leave sometimes, right? When godly mothers, and godly women, when the husband and the children leave their clothes all over the place, right? Sometimes it's not easy, right? I have to pick up after them. But that is the heart of being a humble servant, right? And it's good. And I want to again commend you all for doing that. Don't be discouraged and give up, right? Continue to walk in that heart of humble service. So we see the scriptures say that, live in harmony with one another. Don't be haughty, don't be too proud, but associate with the lowly. That means willing to do tasks of lowly people. That is the essence of this verse. Be willing to do lowly service. Things which people look down on, like cleaning and sweeping and all of that, picking up after people, right? Be willing. Don't be too proud and say, hey, I too big to do that, right? I too great to do that. I too big of a woman to pick up after my children, or too big of a woman to pick up after my husband or anything like that. But be willing and humble enough to say, hey, I will serve and do this lowly task. Even though, I know I'm great and all of these things are true about me, a great woman, right? A woman of value. But that does not mean, and don't mix up this, and the Bible teaches us this very clearly. Though we are great people of value, children of God, very precious in God's sight and all of that, it doesn't mean we are too great to do humble acts. And the greatest example of that is with Christ, because look what he says. Even the Son of Man, that is God himself, equal with God the Father. Who deserves any more glory than him? And look what Jesus says. He says, I came not to be served, but to serve. I came not to be served. I didn't come here about me, even though I deserve. What should be done is all of you all should be serving me, right? I am Lord, I am God, right? I don't have to do anything for you all. You all should be serving me. But Jesus says, no, I'm coming here to serve you all. And we saw the ultimate example of this when he washed his disciples' feet at the Last Supper. That is the Lord himself. So sometimes as women, we tend to say, hey, I too big and I too great to have to be, picking up after this man, or I too big to have to be cleaning up after this person, right? And sometimes we let that mentality get in our minds. But I would point you to Christ, who, even though he's Lord, he's greater than you, and he wasn't too big to wash the feet of his disciples, right? And as the same way as godly women, we should act in the same by being willing to serve, whether it is our husband or our children. We should be willing to serve. So that's it for our message today. I've already gone over time, so I apologize for that. And again, I apologize for all of the little inconveniences with the noises and things like that. Just have to bear with me a little bit with that, right? But I hope that you all were able to push through all of that and gain something from this message today, right? So I want to end again by saying a blessed Mother's Day, to all our women, right? And I want to celebrate women on the whole today. Yes, focusing on mothers, but women on the whole. We want to say to women, all of our women at California Wesleyan, we appreciate you, right? So even if you may not be a woman, you may not be a mother, sorry, but you are acting in accordance with all of these things here. You're a woman in our assembly where you do acts of service and all of that. I want to highlight you as well on this day, right? So all mothers, I highlight you today. All women in our assembly, I highlight you today. We are grateful for you. We are thankful for your service. And we know that the Lord will greatly reward you, right, on the day when you stand before Him. And please remember that, a godly woman, for all that you do, the scripture makes very clear that God is not going to leave all of those acts of service that you do unrewarded. The day of rewards for all of that, whether it be your forgiveness, your patience, your kindness, your humility, the day of your reward will come, and be encouraged. Okay, so have a blessed day. Happy Mother's Day to the California family, and to all other mothers that may be listening to this today. A blessed Mother's Day to you. And to the men and children today, let's help them out, right? Don't leave the burden of work on them today, and don't say, hey, be a godly woman and serve. No, let's serve them today, and let's be helpful to them today. All right? Take care. I love you all the women in my California family. Great love to you from me today. Have a blessed day, and take care.